But that's what the left is afraid of. We're going to have Hitler, a fascist, or we're going to have Ahmadinejad or, Jerry Falwell, and we'd have total government. We'd have total government. Let me put it over here. Here's on the right. We'll have total government. That's what they're afraid of. Okay? Then on the left, we have the fear of this, communism. We have Mao, and we have Lenin and Stalin and Castro and Chavez. That's what they're afraid of over here. We have all of them. Do we have Pol Pot anywhere? I love good. You don't often get to use. Yeah, there you go. You don't often get to use a good picture of Pol Pot. These are all fun guys. Well, this guy's doesn't belong here. These are all fun guys too. These are places that nobody in America wants to go. Who wants to live with these people? Nobody, except the lunatics. But let me show you. Everybody says it's left and right. It's not. The Republicans and the Democrats, they're actually up and down. They're up and down. That's what this is. Okay? It's on the ends of the spectrum that these guys exist. See, the choices that we have on this spectrum, anarchy at the very end. Anarchy, and it ends with total government over here. We've never been for total government, and we've never been for anarchy either. Our founders started the country after we won the Revolutionary War, and they started our country not with the Constitution, but with something called the Articles of Confederation. It set up such a limited government that the whole thing flew apart. You couldn't even do business across state lines. Our country was a total mess. Do you know who the first president of the country was? This guy. John Hanson. No, it wasn't George Washington. John Hanson. But see, I said our country. It's a different country. Under the Articles of Confederation, they first put it right here. It was too close to anarchy. It didn't work. It fell apart. Every state was fighting against each other, cheating against each other. It was too close to anarchy. So in 1785, Congress knew that it wasn't working. And unbeknownst to them, James Madison and Thomas Jefferson had been exchanging letters, and they were trying to work on a totally new system of government. They knew that they were never going to get something this radical past any members of Congress, any of the states, because nobody trusted anybody anymore. But they had this thing called a republic. It moved this government a little farther down, moved it to about here. But they needed somebody to help bring everybody together. They needed somebody that they could trust, that everyone in the room would trust. They needed someone who they knew would bring everybody together, everybody would trust, and in the end, would do the right thing, even at his own expense. That man was George Washington. I have to tell you a story in its entirety later on, some other show, but in a nutshell, Washington saved the Republic many, many times. But the time before this one, it was right at the end of the Revolutionary War. He had actually stopped his soldiers from revolting against members of Congress and killing a lot of the members of Congress, because Congress said, we're not paying you. Well, they had served, they had fought, some of them had died, and now you're not getting paid. Washington tried to stop them over and over and over again, but they were determined to go and wipe Congress out. At the last moment, this man walked in. In one of his finest moments, this man walked in and he stopped them. Now, these were Washington's own men who had fought and died by his side, who had loved him, who adored him until that moment. He stopped them from taking any action against Congress. He saved the Republic. Otherwise, it would have gone into tyranny. They actually abandoned him because of it. When the peace treaty was signed, only 20 soldiers were still standing by his side to celebrate the hard-fought victory. Washington, a man of honor, wept. He went home to Mount Vernon. He went home alone. He just wanted to be a farmer. He went without the love and warmth of his men, just their cold respect. But that was enough. When people came knocking at his door and saying, George, General, the thing is falling apart here. We're almost in anarchy. Washington didn't want to go back to Philadelphia. His response as serving as the nation's leader was, "Have I not already given enough for my country?" Well, he finally relented. And then the old crew was back. And they were all back trying to put together faith, hope, and charity, a constitution. And they put it right here, just past anarchy, but not too far down. Washington actually said very little during the convention. His presence is what held the coalition together. There wasn't any arm twisting, there was no bribery, no special deals, no labor unions involved. Imagine that. They did have to make some compromises. Slavery was one of them. They succeeded in creating, out of a varied mess of differing cultures and interests, the greatest nation that has been ever devised. So Washington came. Madison laid out his ideas of a republic, and the states said, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We just left this system. We just left," well, it wasn't those guys at the time, but before these guys were known, it was this guy. It was King George. It was King George or Henry VIII or even, Vlad the Impaler. That's what it was. You name it. Oppressive killer governments, just different faces, different tactics, but the same killer oppressive governments. But Madison convinced them. We have the Articles. The Articles are not going to control you here. They don't control anything. We need just a little more powerful central government. But the central government wouldn't impede your right or your state's rights. You still get to be your own state. In fact, to make them feel better in the end, he said, look. We'll come up with 10 things. 10 things we promise as a federal government we will never, ever do. 10. The Bill of Rights. It was a promise to the states from the federal government. We will never, ever do these things. We will never take these rights from you, the states, or you, the people. Now, I tell you all of this because it's a backdrop here of what happened on the show last night. Because, see, if this is Republican and Democrat, we should be here, where our founders put us. Instead, we seem to be moving here, back and forth. And history has been lost. And if it's lost, it's over. We'll repeat it. It's important to understand this. Because if we don't reclaim our own history, if we don't remember the things in our own past, the next generation is going to have to do this history all over again. Which brings me again to the thing that I played last night. Watch.
We have to help bring this government down. We have to help destroy this system, and that requires increasing the alienation that working class and oppressed people feel. The way change is going to happen in this country is through the destruction of what we call the United States of America. I'm opposed to white supremacy, not because it's white people involved. I'm opposed to the system that we traditionally call imperialism, and the idea that some people have rights and privileges that are not granted to all human beings. And the solution to that problem is called communism and socialism.
It's a lunatic fringe. But if I said to you, this is just one guy, but if I said to you, there are people alive right now, some of them watching this show, that can tell you about a time in Madison Square Garden when it was filled to the rafters by Nazis. They almost swept the country. You'd say, no. If I told you about Hitler youth camps all across the country, you'd say, crazy. But Nazis filled Madison Square Garden. Nazis. Under the banner of Americanism. At the same time, the Communist Party controlled the American labor unions. They infiltrated the highest levels of our government. Today, I'm sure 99% of America have never seen what I'm about to show you. And I think the same number of people have never heard this portion of American history. But it is crucial for you to hear, lest we repeat it. I'll show it to you next. All Americans, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you know something in your gut that something is very, very wrong and that we're being pushed